Okay, continuing on the certain portion that I stopped with, we are going to now move on to our, let me do decimals first before I go to the quantiles for group data. So in terms of deciles now, you are going to divide the distribution into 10 equal parts. So basically, if you have the first decile, that's gonna be your D sub 1. Tapos yung fifth decile mo is gonna be D sub 5 for an example. Tapos yung D sub 9 mo would be our 99th decile, which is 90th percentile value. The best way to explain this one is using still the number line, wherein we could see the relationship between our quantiles. So let's say ito yung entire distribution natin, which is yung number line, which is going to be 100%. As you can see, I wrote here na it's gonna be, it's gonna start out with our first percentile, our 0th percentile up, and then next one is gonna be 10th percentile, and then 20th up until 100th percentile. And then also we could divide our entire distribution into 4 equal parts, which is gonna be your Q sub 2 or your second quartile or your middle quartile, and then we could also have your first quartile and then our upper quartile. You could also divide your entire distribution into 10 equal parts, which is this one. That's going to be our decile 1, decile 2 up until decile 10 or 10th decile. As you can see, there is a certain relationship between our quantiles. As you can see here, yung quartile 2 natin or our median is just equal to our 50th percentile, and also it's just equal to our D sub 5 or our 5th decile. It's same case for our D sub 4, wherein yung D sub 4 mo is just our 40th percentile. It's also the same case for our first quartile, wherein our first quartile is just our 25th percentile. So basically, there is still a relationship in between all of those quantiles. There could be a case wherein you are going to be asked kung ano yung 10th decile niya, tapos yung ibibigay is just our quartiles. So you can make use of these as a reference to find yung ating value. Okay? So yun. And then, also, I let you, I'll give you a formula in order to find our deciles. So basically, still we are going to arrange the data in a rank list, which is for step 1. If it's disarranged just like this one, yung 2, 3, 4, 10, 8, 8, 9 up until 4 is a disarranged data set. You arrange it from lowest to highest or either highest to lowest. As you can see, I arranged that one and then use the formula to determine the location of our D sub 3 for this case, or our third decile or any other decile that we want to locate. So that is C is equal to the quantity of X times M plus 1 divided by 10, where X is the decile rank and N is the total number of data. So from that, if you have the C now, you can count starting from the lowest value to determine yung ating value ng decile. And if it's a whole number, you could just count from starting from the lowest to that specific location ng ating C. Pag hindi naman siya whole number, you have to as well make use of these formula before you find out yung value ng decile. So you have to use the CTA, C is equal to the CTH value plus the remaining decimal value times CTH minus C plus first value. So as you can see here on the example that I've provided, we calculate for our D sub 3. So if we are going to do that, D sub 3, meaning our X here is gonna be the decile rank, which is 3. Tapos yung N natin is the number of data, which is, if you're gonna count this one, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So you just have to substitute the values here. So that's gonna be 3 times 15 plus 1 divided by 10, and then that's gonna be 3 times 16 divided by 10, and then the value would be, if I'm going to use the scientific calculator, gonna be 3 times 16 divided by 10. 3 times 16 divided by 10, which is 4.8. So meaning our third decile is in the 4.8 position. But we have a rule na pag hindi siya whole number, you have to use this formula as well, wherein we have to make use of our CTH value and C plus first value. So as you can see here, instead of directly determining yung 4.8 position, we have to substitute yung CTH value, which is 4, diba? Tapos yung consecutive number niya na C plus first is gonna be the 5th position. So kung i-identify mo yung 4th value here, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's still 4. Tapos yung 5th position niya is 8. So that's gonna be the numbers that you are going to substitute here. 4 plus tapos yung remaining decimal value, which is 0.8. So that's gonna be 4 plus 0.8 times 8 minus 4. And as you can see, it's gonna be 7.2 instead for our third decile. So meaning the 4.8 position is 7.2, not 4.8, which is equal to our third decile. Basically, that's how you calculate for our decile value. Then, now we are going to move on for group data. Paano naman i-calculate yung measure of relative position or yung quantiles in terms of group data? So let me just go to the file. So ito yung gagawin natin, class. So the computation of quantiles of group data is similar to the computation of the median, which is P sub 50. Recall that for formula for finding the median is given by this one, diba? Ito yung formula na introduce ko sa inyo, wherein the median is equal to the LL, or the lower limit, plus the n divided by 2 minus your f sub b divided by f times c. So we are just going to formulate an equation in terms of the median. So instead of having n divided by 2, which is gonna be yung ating value here, we instead do 50% of n, meaning we are calculating for the 50th percentile. So that would be 50% of n minus f sub b divided by f times c. So in turn, meaning we could find yung ating mga percentile value, or yung p sub x, is just equal to LL plus the quantity of x% times n minus f sub b divided by f times c, where your LL here is the true lower limit of the class interval containing p sub x, and then your f sub b is equal to the sum of all frequencies below the intervals containing p sub x, wherein you are going to look at the less than CF below the interval containing p sub x, and then f is equal to the frequency of the interval containing p sub x, and n is equal to the number of cases, and c is equal to the class size. So let's try to do an example involving that one so that we could properly understand what its use. So let's say ito yung ating frequency distribution, and then we already created the frequency distribution out of a data set. Tapos ito yung na-create mong class intervals, ito yung na-create mong frequencies, ito yung less than CF mo na na-calculate, and then the total number of data. Now the task for you is to find your Q sub 1. So how would you find your Q sub 1 in terms of the formula for quantiles? So let me just add another page for me to properly explain that one. So we are going to make use of these. So let me just crop up also that formula here, and then use that certain formula. So what we are going to do is to define ano yung dapat na mga values ng LL, F sub B, ng F, ng N, tsaka C in terms of the quartile 1. So we know na from our number line, no, that we make use as a reference, that our quartile 1, if you go back, is just yung 25th percentile. And again, ang ating formula is in terms of our percentile, so we are going to instead make use of that relationship. Instead of using quartile 1, we use P sub 25. Now, P sub 25 is gonna be what we are going to look for. Okay, since it's just equal to q sub 1. Tapos, identify mo now yung lower limit plus the the x percent of n, f sub b, f, tsaka c. So, let's start with your x percent n. So, yung n natin is 30, right? So, 30. So, that's gonna be 25% of our 30. So, 25% of our 30 is just 7.5. So, yan, 7.5 lang yan. So, meaning, yan yung value supposedly here. Now, we try to find naman yung ating LL. But we don't have yet a class interval containing P sub X. So, we have to determine kung saan naka-locate yung ating 7.5, which is doon naka-contain yung ating 25th, doon naka-locate, nandun yung ating 25th percentile. So, if we do that, we are going to determine the class intervals that we could make use. Kasi 7.5 is in between ng 7 at 17. We are going to look at dito sa ating frequencies. To be specific, we look at our less than CF. 7 tsaka 17, nandito si 7.5. So, it's either we use 80 to 84 or 75 to 79 as a reference for our LL or lower limit of the specific class interval. Kung saan nandoon yung ating P sub X or P sub 25. But for this case, we are not going to make use of 75 to 79 because it doesn't, it's not enough, it doesn't represent yung ating 25th percentile. Meaning, hindi siya enough to cover the data for 25th percentile. So, meaning, we are going to make use instead of 80 to 84. That's a better representation for P sub 25. So, meaning, we are going to make use of this class interval and doon din natin kukunin yung other values which are our frequency. So, for this case, our LL would be of that certain class interval. So, ano yung halfway ng ating 75 to 79 to 80 to 84? That is 79 to 80, that is 79.5. So, this is gonna be LL is 79.5. And then, also, for our frequency, wherein yung frequency of the interval containing P sub 25 is gonna be 10, since we are referring to 80 to 84. So, that would be 10. And then, yung N natin is a number of cases. Nakalculate na natin yan. Tapos, yung C na lang natin. Yung C is gonna be 80 to 84. That is 5 yung class width. So, that's gonna be 5. So, substituting the values in terms of this one, your LL plus X percent of N minus F sub B divided by, divided by F times C would be LL is 79.5 plus the X percent of N, which is 7.5, minus yung wala pa pala pa tayong frequency nito, or F sub B. That's the sum of all frequencies below the intervals containing P sub X. So, ano yung mga below ng ating 80 to 84? That's 75 to 79, 70 to 74. So, we add up all the frequency here. That is going to be 7. So, that's going to be 7 here. And then, you have just to substitute that value here as well. And then, divide by 10 times 5. So, it's going to be now 79.5 plus, this is going to be 0.5 divided by 10 times 5. Excuse me. Sorry, I just have to clear up my throat. So, yon. So, we just have to calculate the value for this. So, it's going to be 79.5 plus 0.5 divided by 10. Divided by 10 times 5. So, it's going to be 0.25. 0.25, and then you add up the value with 79.5. 29.5 is going to be 79.75. So meaning the p sub 25 or the value of the 25th percentile is 79.75. So that's how you make use ng ating formula for quantiles. Okay? Yon. And then we also have another measure of relative position, which is our standard score. Ano naman yung use ng ating standard score? So basically, yung standard score natin is gonna tell you how many standard deviation a data value is above or below the mean for a specific distribution. So basically, in notations or in symbols, a z-score or standard score for a value is obtained by subtracting the mean from the value and dividing the result by the standard deviation. So in symbols, it's going to be now z is equal to value minus mean divided by standard deviation. And we have, of course, dalawang formula for that one in terms of the sample and the population. So if you remember, what we are using for samples, for mean is x bar, and then for sample standard deviation is s, and for population mean it's mu, and then for our standard deviation that's sigma. So we make use of those for our standard score. So for the formula for the sample standard score, that is c is equal to x minus x bar divided by s. Tapos yung ating population standard score, that is c is equal to x minus mu divided by sigma. So to properly again explain how to make use of this one, let's have an example. So let's say a student scored 65 in a calculus test that had a mean of 50 and a standard deviation of 10. She scored naman 30 on a history test with a mean of 25 and a standard deviation of 5. You have to compare relative positions on the two tests. So the solution would be like this one. You calculate first for your c sub 1. Let's say we let c sub 1 is equal to our standard score for the calculus test. Okay? And z sub 2 be equal for the standard score let me erase this part for the history test. So again, in any problem solving, you always make use of the given. So ano yung given natin? Meron tayong 65 on a calculus test and had a mean of 50 and a standard deviation of 10. Tapos sa history test, meron tayong 30 na score, tapos yung mean is 25 and a standard deviation of 5. So meaning this is our x, this is gonna be our x bar, tapos ito yung ating standard deviation in terms of the calculus test. Tapos ito yung x, ito yung x bar, ito naman yung s. So let's try to do that. For z sub 1, that's gonna be x minus x. Let's try to make use of that. So that will be c sub 1 is equal to x minus x bar divided by s. Tapos yung x mo dyan is 65 minus the mean, which is 50, divided by 10. So 65 minus 50 is just 15. 15 divided by 10 is just 1.5. So meaning, yung standard score niya sa calculus test is 1.5. Tapos yung c sub 2 mo naman is same case. You just substitute the values. And then that would be 30 minus 25 divided by 5. Tapos 30 minus 25 is just 5 divided by 5, which is gonna be 1.0. So meaning yung standard score naman niya sa history test is gonna be 1.0. So basically, since our standard score for calculus is higher than is greater than yung kanyang standard score for the history test, meaning yung relative position niya din sa calculus is much higher than sa history test. Okay? Yon. And then also, we have another example. So to find the z-score for each find the z-score for each test and state also which is higher. So same pa din yung gagawin mo, yung test A tapos test B. I think I would like to give this as a practice na lang sa inyo kasi same lang naman siya ng scenario dito. You just have to compare yung mga score nila. Okay? Also, anyway, since we're already in standard score, I like you also to take note that pag involving tayo ng standard score, pag yung standard score mo is 0, that means yung ano nga yun? Yung the score there is just the same as the mean. Pag yung C mo is 0. Pag makakuha ka ng standard score na positive naman, that means the score is above the mean. And pag makakuha ka naman ng Z na is negative, that means the score is below the mean. Just like this one, to make use of an example, yung ating Z sub 1 here is 1.5, diba? So, sabi na pag positive siya, the score is above the mean. The score is above the mean. So, yung score natin dito is x is equal to 65. Tapos, yung mean is 50. As you can see, yung ating z here, yung x natin, which is our score, is greater than our mean, which is our 50. Or basically, it's above our mean, which is 50. Pag maging negative naman, it's gonna be below. And then, pag 0, same lang yung mga value ng score tsaka yung ating mean. Okay? Sige. And then, let's move on to another example. I think this is still the same na scenario. Basically, ito is gonna be determining which gonna be what would be, the z-score or the standard score, and based on the standard score, you have to see through kung saan siya nag-excel na test. So, Raul has taken 2 tests in his chemistry class and he scored 72 on the first test, for which the mean of all scores was 65 and the standard deviation was 8. He received a 60 on the second test, for which the mean of all scored was 45 and the standard deviation was 12. In comparison to the other students, did Raul do better on the first test or second test? Sige, atin na lang i-solve. So, for the solution, we are going to do the same thing, make use of the given. So, for the first test, yung ating x dyan, yung score natin is 72, yung mean natin is 65, tapos yung s natin is 8. Tapos sa second test, yung x natin dyan is 45, tapos yung ating mean dyan, yung ating score dyan is 60, tapos yung mean is gonna be 45, and then s is gonna be 12. So we are going to make use still of our formula. So let's say we let yung z sub 1 to be our first test. So z sub 1 is gonna be x minus x bar divided by s. So that's gonna be 72 minus 65 divided by 8. So 72 minus 65 is minus 65. Oops. Wait lang. 72 minus 65 divided by 8 is gonna be 0.875. So that's 0.875. Tapos yung C sub 2 there is our second test. x minus x sub bar s, that's gonna be now 60 minus 45 divided by 12. So 60 minus 45 divided by 12, 60 minus 45 divided by 12 is gonna be 1.25. So as you can see, mas malaki yung ating z sub 2 kaysa sa c sub 1. So, or z sub 2 is greater than c sub 1. So, meaning, Raul did better on the second test than the first test. Okay? Okay. And we also have another example here wherein it's the other way around. Instead of finding our z-score, we are going to find now yung ating x. So, as an example, a consumer group tested, so this is tested, a sample of water light bulb. It found that the mean life expectancy of the bulbs was 842 hours with a standard deviation of 90. One particular light bulb from the Durabright company had a z-score of 1.2. What was the lifespan of these light bulbs? So for a solution, of course, you are going to identify the given. So, yung given natin is that meron tayong mean na 842 hours. Tapos, meron tayong standard deviation na, meron tayong standards. Oh, yeah, meron tayong standard deviation na 90. And then, meron din tayong standard score na 1.2. So, basically, yung hinahanap natin is our score or our x. So, if we go back to the formula, no, that is gonna be x here is missing. So, meaning that's gonna be z is equal to x minus the x bar divided by s. So, basically, you can try to equate yung equation natin in terms of our x. So, what you're going to do is cross multiply, no? Or multiply both sides of the equation with s, so that yung ma-left out na lang is yung x minus x bar. So that's gonna be sc is equal to x minus x bar, tapos transpose mo to the other side of the equation yung negative x bar. So you will have a formula which is x is equal to sc plus x bar, which is the mean. So we could make use of that, or pwede ka ding mag-direct substitution na lang. And then find your x. So for this case, it would let you immediately find your x. So s is gonna be 90, substitute natin, times z, which is 1.2, plus yung x bar, which is 842 hours. So 90 times 1.2, 90 times 1.2 is 108, plus 842. So 108 plus 842. Let me write that down. And then that would be equal to 950. So therefore, 950 hours. So meaning the lifespan of these light bulb is gonna be 950 hours. Okay? Merong ganong mga scenario wherein instead of finding your z, you are going to be required to find s, your x, or either the mean. So you have to make use of the given and then also try to come up with an equation that will let you find these values. Okay? So, a matter of ano lang siya, a matter of transforming the equation. Yon. So, I'm going to stop first here kasi baka ma-cut off yung video, and then I'm going to continue with part 3.